Good evening. My name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. Recording tonight on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. This is story number 87 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. Sharing stories on many subjects since December of 2021. And I enjoy the memories of so many St. Patrick's Day parades here in Baltimore over the years. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I'd also like to mention that today, March 3rd, is an important day in American history because it was 95 years ago today, March 3rd, 1931, that the U.S. Congress officially declared that the Star-Spangled Banner should be the national anthem of the United States. So that may surprise many people that, as many people know, it was written back in 1814 by Francis Scott Key here in Baltimore during the siege of Fort McHenry by the British. And it took, though, over 100 years before it really became our official anthem. Although many times over that 100-year period, it would be played at special ceremonies anyway as sort of an unofficial anthem, including when the United States entered the Olympic Games, the early Olympics of 1896 and 1900, 1904. It was considered like America's anthem by many people even then. But still, it was not till 1931, on this day, March 3rd, it became official. The Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. I grew up in the Mount Vernon Place area of Baltimore. Most of the first 34 years of my life, that's where I lived, near the Washington Monument in Baltimore and the Walters Art Gallery, the Peabody Conservatory of Music, which in 1977 became part of Johns Hopkins University. And that's around the area where the parade has been held as long as I can remember. When I was very young, it actually started on Cathedral Street, Cathedral and West Mount Vernon. And we lived at these separate apartments for many years, from 1968 to 1986, between my ages of 16 and 34. And so we could see from our 8th floor window, my family and I, we could see the parade people assembling and the men playing the pipes, the bagpipes, always enjoyable on a Sunday in March. Sometimes it's been the second Sunday of March, sometimes the third Sunday. It's always one of those two times, pretty close to St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes it has been on exactly St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. I must say, well, I appreciate the organization of all the organizations that go into the parade. Sometimes I think it's been a little inappropriate, though. I think they should really happen on the third Sunday most of the time, because sometimes that really is March 17th, and sometimes the last few years, March 17th was that Sunday, yet they still had the previous Sunday, March 10th, which I don't think made much sense. Why not have it on the exact day of St. Patrick's Day? But this year they're having it on March 15th, a Sunday just 2 days before St. Patrick's Day, instead of March 8th, which would be a little too early, in my opinion. But it's always a great time, and some years later, I think sometime in the 90s, they moved it to Charles Street, just one block over, where now it begins near the Washington Monument and goes south on Charles Street and down by the Inner Harbor. Sometimes they've had a race, a 5-kilometer foot race. I think they call it the Shamrock 5K. I wish I could have run in that, but I was a runner for many years, from about 1968 to 86. But it's sometime after that, they started that race, so I never got to run that race in particular. But I remember several years that were very enjoyable. In 1969, my junior year in high school, I went to a high school in Baltimore called Mount St. Joseph for my sophomore, junior, and senior years out in West Baltimore. But I was living down in the Mount Vernon area then, And a young lady I dated who lived in the Catonsville area of Baltimore County, she and I went to that parade in 1969. And then 1979 was an interesting year too. I was dating a young lady by the name of Judy Collins, the same name as a famous singer who was very popular at that time, Judy Collins. And this young lady was also of Irish descent. And then in 1980, I was actually part of the parade that year. That one time I was actually part of the parade because I'd taken a wonderful trip to Great Britain and Ireland the year before in 1979. I traveled 15 weeks to many parts of the British Isles, and in Ireland in particular was about 6 weeks, where I went to both the Republic of Ireland and also the area called Northern Ireland. And so somebody here in Baltimore heard about the fact that I'd been on that trip, and a friend of mine named Brian knew some of the people who were members of the ancient order of Hibernians, and so mostly older gentlemen at that time who liked to be in the parade every year. So they asked Brian and me to carry the banner for them as we assembled on Cathedral Street. At that time it was still going down Cathedral Street. We walked past the Basilica and the main branch of the Pratt Library here in Baltimore on down to the Inner Harbor. So that was the one time I was actually part of the parade. But it's always been very enjoyable to watch the parade. I did many times through the year 2000, and actually, come to think of it, 2003 was the last year I actually went. In these last 23 years, I've moved to different parts of Baltimore, and unfortunately, I've had some medical issues to deal with, especially the last 7 years since 2019. Now I had a bad stroke, a bad fall, and hip fractures, and I have to use a wheelchair a lot to get around. But I'm hoping maybe this year I might be able to find some people to take me down there. I sometimes have friends that take me to other parts of Baltimore for different occasions, but it just so happens it's been hard to line up something for the St. Patrick's Day parade. But maybe this year I'll be lucky, or at least sometime in the near future, and once again go to one of the most enjoyable events that takes place in Baltimore every year, the St. Patrick's Day Parade. 2 other events I'll just mention briefly, also very enjoyable public occasions, is the Flower Mart, which takes place usually in early May, a 2-day festival on a Friday and Saturday, where you have different organizations displaying things that long ago, when it was founded around 1911, it was mainly about flowers and things and plants, but it's just a nice gathering of people of different organizations, and they have food and beverages too. That's the early May each year. And also in December, the first Thursday of December for many years, the lighting of the Washington Monument at Mount Vernon Place is very much a public event, and that's been going on since 1972. So I hope if you've never been to the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Baltimore, I hope you get to go sometime soon. It's a very enjoyable occasion. And you notice I have up here a few photographs, and also the official national flag of Ireland, the green, white, and orange flag of the Republic of Ireland, and also a picture of the provincial flags going back to many years ago in medieval times when Ireland was divided into 4 provinces. It's a very pretty flag, I think, of the different symbols of the old Irish provincial flag. This is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. We will see you next time for story number 88, another story on another subject. At this time, God bless our troops. Thank you and good night.